I'm Colby Melton, a SDI student enrolled in FTE-211, the 1911 Advanced Armors course. My professor is Dr. Perdue. Today's date is March 29th, 2025, and this is my week 3 assignment. For this assignment, students are to use the random number generator to identify 3 components from the assigned schematic and display our understanding of them based on the week's lesson by answering 5 prompts. My pick 3 numbers are 25, 40, and 7. Transition into my workspace. Here's my identification card. As you can see, I went ahead and field stripped the firearm. There's no ammunition in the workspace. A picture of the schematic. Number 25 is the mainspring housing. Number 1, its critical dimensions are its overall height, width, the rail cut and track, the mainspring assembly well, the hole for the mainspring housing pin, and the hole for the mainspring pin. 2, its potential malfunctions, while unlikely, are primarily a failure to cock or fire because it houses the mainspring assembly, which powers the hammer. If it were to get crushed by, say, maybe a tank, something other than just a drop, it could pinch that spring while the hammer, not allowing the hammer to come all the way back, or seizing the hammer in the cocked position. Number 3, in theory, for the mainspring housing, only external damage is likely, which is most cases should not interfere with the overall function of it, the pistol, because it's metal and it does house everything pretty well. Number 4, to avoid causing damage to this component, gunsmith should undergo basic hand tool employment training. 5, the components that interact with the mainspring housing include the frame, which it sets in. Its associated critical dimensions are its rails and the cut that receive it, and the mainspring housing pinhole that is here that corresponds with that one when using the pin. The other components include the mainspring assembly, which resides inside of it, the hammer strut, which acts against the mainspring assembly retaining pin, and the sear spring, all of which have their own critical dimensions for contact surfaces and proper fit and interaction. It also sets in against the sear spring and holds it into place. So if it was too proud there, or the spring was too proud, it wouldn't set in there like it was supposed to. Number 40 is the slide. The critical dimensions for the slide include the rail cut, the dust cover, the bushing slot, the barrel locking surfaces, the breech face and its lug, the firing pin channel and hole, the extractor channel, the firing pin stop cut, the ejection port cut, and the slide stop cut, just to name a few. Number 2, any of the 8 cycles of operation or failures of malfunction could occur if the slide were to be damaged or improper modification, depending on the location and nature. Example, damage to the feeding lug could cause a failure to feed, whereas damage to the rails or cut might cease the pistol during recoil or during the feeding, or along any one of the actual 8 cycles of operation other than firing. But you could have a failure to fire if something were to happen. Firing pin channel. Number 3, minor exterior damage or rust might be potential or likely types of damages to the slide that it will encounter because of its solid steel construction. Number 4, to avoid causing damage to the component, a gunsmith should undergo basic hand and tool employment and have a mechanical understanding of the 1911. Number 5, the components that interact with the slide include those in it that it houses, such as the firing pin, extractor, the bushing channel, the firing pin stop, and the sights. And the frame, and outside of it, the frame, the slide stop, the barrel, recoil spring, hammer, ejector, disconnector, to name just a few, all of which have their own critical dimensions associated and related to their fit to and interaction with the slide. For example, the barrel has locking lugs that mate with the slide, just as the The bushing has its own notch that fits into the groove and locks into the slide. Number 7 is the ejector pin. It holds the ejector in place and goes all the way through the frame and the rail cut. Its critical dimensions are its 1/16 inch in diameter and its overall length as it is to set flush or slightly recessed into the rails. Its potential malfunctions, if it were to work its way out, it could impede the slide, causing a failure to cock, or a failure to extract or eject, or as it was going forward, a failure to feed or a failure to lock. And this is, or if it was to come loose during disassembly or something, the ejector could work its way out and interfere with the slide. Number 3, the pin is not a likely candidate for damage. However, it could be misplaced during the build, causing the ejector not to sit securely as it's supposed to. Number 4, to avoid causing damage to the component, the gunsmith should be trained to employ hand tools and the proper mechanics and just the aspects of the ejector. Number 5, the component that interact with the ejector are the ejector and frame. In relationship, their critical dimensions are for the frame, the hole that that houses the pin, and for the ejector, the little notch or C-cut into the front longer leg that it sets in to hold it in place. And this concludes the assignment.